Welcome to the show, everybody. Joseph Robert, the Fantasy Football Counselor. Before we get into the show, guys, make sure you guys head on over to thefantasyfootballcounselor.com. Get the 16-round draft solution. This is the game changer. All the optimal players are drafted in each round, omitting all of the terrible ones. Like last year, you avoided Le'Veon Bell first round if you got 16 rounds. Antonio Brown round 2. You avoided guys like Damian Williams early round 2. You avoided what the mainstream sheepses are telling you to draft. You get all the optimal players and when to draft them correctly in the right round. Sleepers, breakouts, everything in the video training with the notes laid out for you. 16-round draft solution is the game changer, guys. Scrap the draft kits, cheat sheets, outdated magazines. That is done. It's over. The future has arrived. Link below here on the YouTube video. I've pinned the comment below. And of course, guys, head on over to thefantasyfootballcounselor.com. Get 16 rounds today. Also, guys, Fantasy Direct throughout the season. I'm also offering that as well, where I give you guys the optimal DFS players, your starts and sits, waiver wire, everything delivered to you via text. This is pretty amazing. No one else is doing this. Head on over to thefantasyfootballcounselor.com. Right-hand side, you'll see it under programs, content will be right there. Get Fantasy Direct and 16 rounds, guys. Now, let's get to the show. We're talking about 5 quarterback sleepers I absolutely love for Fantasy Football 2020. Let's get to it. Welcome to the show, everybody. Joseph Robert. Let's get to the show. We're talking about 5 quarterback sleepers I absolutely love for Fantasy Football 2020. I want to get to this, but again, guys, make sure you guys click on the link here below. Pinned comment, get the 16-round draft solution. It is the game changer. It's really going to help you guys crush your leagues. It's going to save you a lot of time as well. I'm telling you guys, it's as close to bulletproof as possible. Help you guys crush your leagues. Get it below or thefantasyfootballcounselor.com. All right, so let's talk about quarterbacks that I love that are sleepers. Now, understand, guys, this is a year where I genuinely feel you can really wait on quarterback. But that being said, I also like to anchor my team with an ace quarterback, meaning I like to get myself a Russell Wilson, a Matt Ryan, or somebody that could potentially finish in the top 5, top 10. So if you do need a quarterback, at least wait till the 6th round, because I'm telling you guys, if you go Lamar and Mahomes, and trust me, I love both these guys, and I think Mahomes probably has a better year. I think Mahomes has a phenomenal year, maybe another record year, okay? But the problem is with this is, unless you're in a 2-quarterback league or a super flex, you want to load up on the running back position because, again, it's the most scarce position. There's a ton of depth at wide receiver and a ton of depth at quarterback. Now, a couple notes here, guys. Make a couple notes. So wait on quarterback, but still try to get yourself an ace if you can. And if you want an ace, you're looking at least the 6th round because that's when Russell Wilson and all these guys start coming off, okay? So I would at least wait till the 6th round, okay? Now, another thing you want to note with quarterbacks, and I talk about this all the time, but it's practical fantasy football draft strategy and tips that'll help you. Always have a backup quarterback. I know sometimes your roster spots, on the bench spots, there isn't enough, right? But you should be encouraging, due to the world situation this year, you should be encouraging more bench spots to your commissioner. If you're commissioner, you should be extending out those bench spots so you have more bench players. And that's going to be advantageous if you get a 16-round draft solution because I talk about a lot of sleepers there for you that you can load up on. So it's never enough for me. I can go like 20 bench spots. I'm still drafting players because I'm aware of who could potentially break out. And if you guys listen to this podcast, it'll be advantageous to you. So the point I'm trying to make here is always have a backup plan. 2-quarterback league, have 3 quarterbacks. 1-quarterback league, have another backup quarterback. Why is that? Well, number one, lack of performance. For some reason, let's say your performance isn't performing. Last year, the consensus, the Chiefs all told you, Baker Mayfield. They said, Baker Mayfield, draft them round 1. That's what they said. Or not round 1, round 2, 3, whatever it was. They had him top 3 or 4 amongst a quarterback. So lack of performance is one. Another reason is injury, right? You never know. Nobody's bulletproof. And another thing, finally, is covering your bye weeks, okay? So sometimes maybe your backup outperforms your starter. A couple years ago, I had Drew Brees as my starter. I had Matt Ryan as my backup. That year, Matt Ryan was doing great. So what I ended up doing was starting Matt Ryan over Drew Brees. Now, Drew Brees is very volatile, and I still think he's very volatile this year as well. They bring in Taysom Hill. It's really a pain in the ass, taking away a lot of volume near the goal line. Anyway, that's besides the point. Point is, get a backup, okay? So I want to go into these 5 sleepers that I love this year at quarterback position, but I wanted to go over a couple of these notes with you, which was backup plan for backup plan, when to draft a quarterback, get get a backup, stuff like that. So it's very important. Also, guys, leave your fantasy questions below. I'll try to get to as many as I humanly possibly can. And smash the thumbs up. It generally helps the channel. All right, so the first quarterback I absolutely love. No particular order, but I do love him as a backup quarterback that could start. All of these guys could start and could finish top 10. That's the upside of all of these backups. And everybody's sleeping on. But the guy I'm talking about is Ryan Tannehill. Now, you've heard me talk about this guy in the offseason. Why do I love him so much? Because he's proven. You've seen him perform last year. He was really, really consistent ever since he took the field with the Titans. Very consistent. Now, I don't have the exact average, but it was around 20 points per game for Ryan Tannehill. He was completely crushing it week in, week out. Safe, secure, solid numbers every single week. Now, I can actually pull up the numbers here and take a look at it, but he finished 22nd last year, guys, amongst quarterbacks. Now, he missed the first 6 games, so that's something to consider heavily when you are looking at him. Missed the first 6 games. He didn't play with the Titans for those first 6 games. So when you look at, for example, week 12, 32 points. The guy threw for 259 yards and 2 touchdowns. He was relatively consistent, not throwing a lot of picks. Week 14, 1 interception, 3 touchdowns that week, 27-point game, right? So he was always consistently producing on a relatively high QB1 level. Now, he finished with 224 points last year, okay? Had he played, now you've heard, again, if you're a regular to the channel, let me know in the comments regularly. You've heard this before. If not, there's a lot of new people absorbing the content because a lot of people come on as we get into full force fantasy football season. That's when they really absorb content. So a lot of people haven't heard me say this, but he finished with 224 points. Had he played the first 6 weeks, guys, with the Titans, he would have averaged, let's say, another 18 to 20 points in those 6 games. You multiply 20 times 6, you add that to 224, you got yourself a top 5 quarterback, okay? Dak finished in and around 330 points. You know, I definitely feel Tannehill, had he played the first 6 games, could have been really close to 330 points, maybe even exceeded it, putting him as a top 3 quarterback. He is currently sitting, 17th, 18th? Like, he's not even being drafted in some leagues. So, amongst quarterbacks in rankings. So, the Chiefs are sleeping on a guy. He's actually sitting 18th in quarterback rankings. They're sleeping on this guy, and you can get him as a backup quarterback that you can start that's going to be ultra efficient. I think A.J. Brown takes a step up this year as well. Decent O-line, Derrick Henry there. I like this offense. Ryan Tannehill is a sleeper quarterback that I absolutely love. Next guy here. Now, there's a lot of question marks surrounding this guy, but the guy I'm talking about is Drew Lock. Now, the thing about him is that you are limited on what you've seen that he can do in the NFL, okay? He didn't do much last year because he only played like 3 or 4 games. So in the 4 games he played, he was mediocre. I think he had like 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. It wasn't anything special at all. But what I like about him is the offensive weapons. Now, he's got Hamler, the new rookie that came in. You know, small guy, looks dynamic, not that excited about him, but that's one weapon. That's good. So they took some time. They got him Hamler. They got him Jerry Jeudy, arguably one of the best route runners coming out of the NFL draft for 2020. So now you've got Hamler, you've got Jeudy. So they've invested in wide receiver weapons. So that's a telling tale and a sign to me that they want to increase and, boost up that receiving core. Okay, that's one thing. Another thing is you got Cortland Sutton, big body receiver. I think he's great talent. This guy was the guy I loved when he came into the league. But again, people like Case Keenum were throwing the ball. For some reason, they didn't like Cortland Sutton. I don't know what it was. But the fact of the matter is, I love Cortland Sutton. But for fantasy, I think there'll be a lot of mouths to feed. Also, Noah Fant, a pass-catching tight end as well. Melvin Gordon, another guy that can catch the ball in the backfield. Phillip Lindsay. So the ton of weapons around Drew Lock. I'm not really high on the weapons so much because I think they'll be battling for targets and attempts when you're looking at Lindsay and Melvin Gordon. But I do love Drew Lock. Now, I watched some college tape on him, met him at the 2019 draft. Pretty nice guy. Seems a little bit into himself. It is what it is. I mean, you're a quarterback coming out of college, top prospect. Seemed okay. Seemed like an okay guy. He seemed pretty confident. His agent spoke really highly of him. Now, I did watch a lot of tape on him. He's got a smooth release. He's got a pretty good deep ball. I like Drew Lock a lot. Now, there is a chance, being a guy coming into the league, playing a full season potentially this year, that he could not be as efficient as a guy who's been in the league for a few years. So that is something that I'm looking at and considering. I'm looking at a guy that could perform on a high level, have a high ceiling, but of course comes with some risk, okay? Obviously, because he hasn't been in the league a long time. But the thing about him, he's sitting 25th on the consensus rankings, whatever you want to call these people putting out these stupid lists and magazines. you can get this guy as a backup quarterback with a ton of upside, okay? The ceiling's there, the upside's there, and I like him. There's something appealing about this Broncos offense that's really attracting me to Drew Lock, a guy that has a good year this year. Everybody will be riding him next year, but you can get him as a backup with a ton of upside, okay? Number 3 here, the guy I'm talking about is Teddy Bridgewater. Apparently, he's building a connection with DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. They're looking good in camp. I'm looking at this guy to be ultra efficient and be a key focal point, obviously, of the Panthers offense. I think they're going to have to throw more this year. Now, last year, CMC did phenomenal, right? But they realized, okay, CMC can have record years on the ground, but that's not going to take us to the playoffs. That's not going to help us win the championship, right? Win the Super Bowl. So I look at Bridgewater. Now, he's been a couple years removed as a starter, played pretty decent when we saw him with the Saints last year, showed some flashes that he could be a super viable fantasy quarterback. Again, a backup quarterback with some upside. I like it. He's got some good weapons. I think Robbie Anderson and him are going to have some really big boom games in DFS this season. Like it. Now, again, people are sleeping on him, but you can get him as a backup quarterback with some upside. Even a quarterback 3 in the 2-quarterback league. Love him. All right, next guy here. I can't believe this guy is being completely ridiculed. He's 24th, I believe, on the consensus rankings right now. The guy I'm talking about is Phillip Rivers, okay? Now, this guy is coming in with a chip on his shoulder. He's had no respect throughout the years. Hasn't gotten the respect that he deserves. Wants to win a Super Bowl. He's on the Colts. They've got a really strong, robust O-line in front of him. They got Jonathan Taylor who's going to come in. I think he's going to do some wonderful things there. They've got some solid receivers. They've invested heavily into Michael Pittman early in the draft, obviously believing in the big-bodied receiver. They've got T.Y. Hilton, the speedster. They've got Paris Cable. They've got some receiving options here, okay? So Phillip Rivers is a guy, again, as a backup, you can get him. And I've talked about his numbers in the past. He throws the ball a lot. Now, some people are being concerned, is he going to make, is Michael Pittman going to be the next Mike Williams? Because Mike Williams didn't do that good. Mike Williams was banged up a lot of the time, right? And I think Pittman could be special. Frank Wright has already said Pittman is the best wide receiver out of the draft. Now, obviously, he's promoting his own guy, understandably so, but I really like Pittman as a late-round stash. You combo him with T.Y. Hilton. You've got arguably the number 1 and number 2 in Indianapolis. Love Phillip Rivers this year. A guy who was 7th in passing attempts last year. He's going to throw the ball, and I think he's going to have more time to throw the ball. He's safe, secure, reliable, Mr. Boring, but he's going to deliver on a week-to-week basis. Now, he may throw some interceptions here and there, so if your league weighs interceptions quite heavily, be a little cautious, but he's a backup. He's a backup. That's all. I'm not saying go and start this guy week 1, but I'm saying he's going to be available there as a backup. All right, the final guy here sitting 15th on the consensus rank is a guy that finished top 3 amongst quarterbacks in fantasy points. The guy I'm talking about is Big Ben Roethlisberger. Now, there is some concern with his elbow. He should be good to go, should be back into shape. I'm assuming the first couple weeks might be a little rusty as he gets back into the groove. I see him throwing a couple picks the first couple weeks, but once he finds his rhythm again with his young receivers, I think he's going to be a special player yet again at the quarterback position for fantasy. Now, again, as a backup, this guy's going undrafted a lot of the times. People are sleeping on him. Number 1 in attempts, number 1 in passing yards back in 2018. Had an injury in 2019, fell off the consensus ranking. So again, that recency bias, people don't want him because they see that he did nothing last year because he wasn't on the field. And this is a guy you can get as a backup with massive upside. I like the step up that they took with Claypool. They stepped up their receivers. I think Claypool's going to be special. I think Deontay Johnson's going to be special. I think Juju's going to do better this year. I'm excited about the offense. I really am. Imagine Claypool and Deontay on the outside, and you got Juju in the slot. We got something special here. So Big Ben, big time sleeper here at the quarterback position as a backup. Love him, okay? And again, these guys are all backups with QB1 upside. I like guys that are more secure. Again, with quarterbacks, you can see more secure trends in their numbers. So you can say, okay, this guy, I know what to expect out of him. I trust him as my QB1. You can see that. With these guys, a little more suspect, but still, you're going to get solid performance out of them, okay? So there you have it, guys. Leave the thumbs up. Fantasy questions below. 5 quarterback sleepers that I love. I'm excited, guys. Fantasy Football 2020 is here. Almost here anyway. We're very close. Get the 16-round draft solution. I appreciate you guys. We'll talk soon. I'm out.